Hello, and welcome to the Canadian Story, where we discuss what Canada is, what Canada could be, and what Canada should be.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Canadian Story. Today, we are joined by Yukon Ali. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This is exciting.
We're excited too.
This is our first Yukon guest, by the way, which
is.
we're all very excited about. I went on a
Yay!
trip to the Yukon in 2018, one of my favorite road trips of all time. We drove from Vancouver. We tried to get all the way up to Tuktoyaktuk, but we got hit by a blizzard in Tombstone National Park, so we weren't able to make it all the way. But one of my favorite trips I've ever been on. So what do you love about Canada? And actually, specifically, what do you love about the Yukon? What brought you there? You're now building a brand around it. Your love for it is contagious. Tell us a bit about why you love this place.
Oh, there's so many reasons why you can love the Yukon. You enter it and you feel like you're in a whole different world. Honestly, it's true. Everything is bigger in the Yukon. The bugs, the moose, the bears, everything. It really is majestic. That's probably the best word I could use to describe it. And the first time I came up here, I fell in love with it. And specifically Dawson City. You show up in town, the dirt roads, the wooden sidewalks, the old buildings that have been restored, some that haven't. It's just got this kind of magical feeling. And I just love it. And the 24 hours of daylight doesn't hurt when you're need to get all your work done in 6 months. Yeah,
exactly. Well, and also the famous toe shots that happened there, which I took part in. And I mean,
did you?
Oh yes.
Wait, hold on. What are those?
So there's you take a shot with a petrified human toe in it, and you have to, and the toe has to touch your lips.
What?
Yeah.
Whose idea was that?
Well, so this, why don't you tell the story of it?
Well, yeah, I think it was somebody that was on the Yukon Quest or something, and he lost his toe to frostbite, and he donated it to the downtown hotel because they came up with this drink, and it really is a great way to get people into the Yukon, I tell you. But actually, somebody swallowed one. Yeah, and so now I think they have a lineup of people that are willing to donate their toes for this sourdough drink.
Yeah,
Honestly, this old sourdough guy, he comes in with his hat on and gives you this big speech, and you have to have hard alcohol, and it's got to touch your lips, and if you do swallow it, it's like a $1,500 fine.
Yeah, and you have to sign a waiver saying you'll pay a $1,500 fine if you swallow it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
it's quite something.
What hard liquor does one, generally speaking, pair with a human toe?
Well, you can do whatever you want, but they suggest Yukon Jack. So, and yeah. So it's I drag everybody in there that comes up to visit.
Yeah, you got to. I mean, it's just like one of those things you just have to do, right?
That is hilarious. Okay, so for everyone who doesn't know, who is Yukon Ali and what do you do?
Oh, I'm just a girl that likes to dig in the dirt and wash rocks. I grew up on a farm in Saskatchewan, and I spent my first 15 years there. Then we moved to BC. And I met Alan in 2010, and he had been gold mining for like 15 years and brought me up here. And I just fell in love with it, and I can't imagine doing anything else.
So tell us a little bit of what the lifestyle of gold mining is like, and maybe a bit, if you can, or you want, to the history of gold mining in the Yukon.
Well, it started with the gold rush up here, right, in 1897, 1898. And they discovered gold it used to be called Rabbit Creek. And it just started a flood of people. And I don't know if you've ever read the books or seen videos of the stampede of people that tried to get into Dawson, like over that Chilkoot Pass. And you had to have 2,000 pounds, I think it was, of supplies, or they wouldn't let you through. The RCMP would stop you at the Chilkoot Pass and turn you back if you didn't have your supplies. Like the fortitude of those old timers, it still shocks me. It's just insane. And on this creek we're on, there is a lot of shafts that we're digging up, like handmade shafts, tunnels down like 50, 60 feet. They tunnel down in the winter to get pay dirt, haul it back up to the ground and sluice it in the spring. Like, it's absolute insanity. Yesterday I dug up a shaft and there was an old sock at the bottom of the shaft. Honestly, yeah, there was a hole in the where his big toe should have been. So I guess, and
maybe there it is. Maybe that's where the toe came from.
That could be. It could be. But yeah, it's a lifestyle. You're out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you do have we have internet, satellite internet. It's not great, but you have all your amenities. But you're still living off the grid. I'm 2 hours from town. I can't just run to the store to get bread, or you're living by generator or solar, and you work long hours because you only have 6 months. You have April till October basically to get all your work done for the year. So yeah, it's not for everybody. It's hard work.
So you met Alan, you go up there. Tell us about your first experiences there, acclimatizing to the different sort of lifestyle. What are the major differences, and what do you kind of find brings you day-to-day meaning and joy out of the occupation, and like, just what is the experience like?
Well, our story, mining together, started in 2016. He was bankrupt. We were both almost broke. We had one excavator that we hauled up there, and we started digging around. And my first thought was, what in the HELL am I doing here?
Yeah, yeah.
This is crazy. We're digging holes all over the valley and shoveling 200 shovelfuls of rocky dirt through this little test box to do a 1-yard test to see if there was gold on this creek that could be viable for us to, build a life on. And the first few weeks weren't pretty. There was a lot of crying and praying.
Yeah.
We did. We finally found a spot, and it was thawed, luckily, because we only had the one excavator. And I thought, you know what? It hooks you. When you see gold show up, like, people talk about gold fever, and that's a very real thing. It does crazy things to people, some people. So I thought, well, this is a pretty cool way to make a living. Like, I love machinery. I love being outdoors. I love running equipment. And I thought, I finally found my calling. I had no idea. I've gone through life going, oh, let's try this. I went to university and got a degree, and I, worked in casinos and ran marinas and campgrounds and did real estate and various other things. And I was always bored. And I come up here, and it's a gamble, right?
Right. Everything's a gamble. Yeah, it's exciting.
That's right. That thing, gold is where you find it. It's very true.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it hooked me. Yeah. So I can't imagine doing anything else.
So now you're up there. You've been there for, I guess, 5 years that you guys started this. And what is the winter like? So you got the 6 months to work, and then what are you doing in the winter? Are you still up there? Are you traveling, or?
No, my mom is in Kamloops, and she's not doing that well. So we spend the winters in Sun Peaks at the ski hill, which is close to her. So we get to ski and look after mom, and yeah, that's
so
winter.
It's hard work in the summers, and then kind of enjoying the fruits of your labors in the winter.
That's right. Well, yeah. That's the plan. It doesn't always work out.
Right. And so in your summer, in the labor months, what are your, like, how many hours a day? First off, how many hours a day do you, generally speaking, work?
Well, we're really small, so it's There's only my nephew and his friend and Alan and myself. So there's 4 of us, 4 pieces of equipment plus the sluice plant. So we're working 12 to 15 hours a day.
Wow.
Every day. Try and take 1 day off a week, but it's go time.
That's basically just hard labor for 12, 14 hours a day. And you don't know if you're going to be successful.
No, you don't. We try and do testing, but if the ground's frozen, you can't test it. So
right.
You start scraping away, and if you can get it down to the pay dirt level, gravel bedrock, we run a test and go, oh, okay, yeah, let's strip this ground, or nope, move on. So yeah, but when you see shafts like that, and some of them are still sticking up out of the ground, that's how dedicated they were. You kind of know, well, if they're there,
then there's
gold.
probably
now
something. Yeah,
that's right. But you have to pray that they left you something, because they're like gophers, man, and some of them are really good. Like,
right. Well, actually, I'm really interested in that. So there was the gold rush. How much gold was kind of taken out, and what's it like now, where there's obviously a lot of, like you said, they're like gophers, a lot has been taken. What is that like in the aftermath of that crazy rush?
Well, yeah, I mean, they were everywhere, and I'm talking like hours out of Dawson City. So whether they got there by paddle wheeler or horse, I don't know, but to get out on those remote creeks, because after, I think, the first year, I think everything was staked around Dawson City. Like, there was really, by the time all these people got up there, all the ground was gone close to town, right? So then they started going out to the more remote creeks, and thousands and thousands of ounces were taken out. Like, they would have gold pans full of nuggets. There's pictures of gold pans just full of nuggets from a couple shovelfuls. It's not like that now.
No.
I can guarantee you. And if it is, nobody's saying.
No. They're not. They learned from talking about it and everyone finding out, right?
That's right. Yeah. But there's enough left because we have equipment, right?
Right.
So they don't get it all. The creek never flows in a straight line.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
right.
So it's like a snake. It squiggles, down the valley. And if they, hit thawed spots or maybe bedrock reefs or gravel bars, they'd have to go around it. So that's where we score,
Yeah, absolutely. So for our listeners won't know much about this. So can you kind of explain how gold works, how it's found, why it's in some areas and not in others, and kind of the process that you use to find it and then mine it?
Gold. I wish Alan was here because he could really explain it technically. But the Ice Age, when lands broke apart, right? And it's in quartz veins. So when it did that, it broke apart and it would run down the mountains in these creeks. And the farther it travels with the water, the more the quartz breaks off of the gold. So gold that hasn't traveled that far is really rocky and it looks porous and it's got lots of quartz in it. And then the farther down the creek it goes, it almost looks smooth, like a donut hole, or like it's really strange. So, and that's very true. Like, it depends on where the land shifted when that happened, right? Some creeks are loaded with gold and the next creek over has absolutely nothing.
Right. So, it's all natural,
yeah,
through long periods of time, basically washing down the mountain. So basically
millions of years. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're searching for it, you're basically looking for what signs would tell you that gold might be here besides former shafts.
Without giving away your secrets.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. We do a lot of testing, and you can go by previous reports too, right? Most creeks have been mined by by miners throughout the last century. So that, because you have to pay your royalties to the Yukon government when you sell gold. And there's records of that in the mining recorder office. So you can go look through that and say, oh, well, they had this, they took out this much gold from this many claims, and it's this percent, because gold isn't pure when it comes out of the ground. Like, it runs anywhere from 50 to 92 or 3% pure. So depending again on the creek you're on and how lucky you are. But so we do a lot of testing if that's not available. So we'll typically try and find thawed ground and dig down. You dig down until you find bedrock, because that's where the gold sits. It's in between. There's like a sweet spot of gravel and bedrock where the gold will settle, and it's the ancient creek bed you're looking for. So if you're looking at a creek bed now, that's most likely not the ancient creek bed that was running through here when gold was deposited. And it could be covered by everything. Like some miners out here are digging down 100 feet, 120 feet in the ground to get to the original creek bed, just because of sloughs and ice ages and you name it, right? So you kind of just have to do your due diligence. And a lot of people, if you do that, you have a better chance of success. So then we'll start stripping, and it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money and time in equipment, wages, fuel, breakdowns, wear and tear on machinery, everything. So it's it's a lot of work, but that's how we find it without giving away too much.
Yeah, I like that. That is helpful for me. So when you say stripping, can you describe that process?
So we'll start at the valley, the top of the valley, and you take off layers of dirt so there's permafrost, black muck, ice, like it's frozen. The Yukon is permafrost. It's permanently frozen. So unless somebody has worked there before, it's frozen.
Right.
So you're either ripping through it with big machinery, bulldozers and such, or you wait for the sun to thaw it. And if you're doing that, you're not going to be very successful. So you need the equipment, and you strip it until you're down to the pay dirt, and then you dig that out, and it can be anywhere from 2 to 12 feet of dirt, more down.
Wow,
so you haul
12
that
feet. It can go all the way to 12 feet.
Yeah, it can, depending on the bedrock, what type of bedrock you're in. So with that, with all the dirt we've moved, after we're done in that valley, you make sure the creek is stable and you reclaim the valley. So a lot of people, you get harassed for mining because they think you're destroying the environment. When we show up on these creeks, like the ones that I've been on, are really narrow. It's muskeg. It's frozen. Nothing grows more than a foot tall.
Right.
There's nothing really there. So when we're done with it, the valley's wider. We've sloped off, made all the creek beds stable, the valley's stable, and then stuff grows. You have willows and whole new ecosystems show up. Rabbits are able to hide in these bushes, and your settling ponds, all of a sudden you've got ducks and all kinds of aviary type of birds. Like, they're everywhere. It's amazing to see a before and after. So, I don't like to argue with people about that because they have their opinion, and you can't, I don't know, once you're saying it, you can't win an argument, right? But
No, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask how that works. And I've always found that hunters, fishers, miners, farmers, they care more about the land and they understand the land better than a lot of the people who are criticizing them for how it's being used. I like the way that you just described it, where you're like, well, actually, this is what we do, and this is the result.
Yeah.
In terms of nature in the Yukon and what you've been able to see and experience, can you share a little bit about what that's like? Because when I went there, it was a totally different kind of nature, and
Yeah.
it's hard to describe to people, but we could give it a shot, I guess, right?
You have to see it yourself to believe it. Like, especially us being out in remote locations, you see grizzly, you see black bears everywhere. The moose, I can't even begin to describe how big they are. You know what one of those razor quads are? They're quite high with the roof, right?
Yeah.
They're probably 5.5, 6 feet tall. I could have driven under a moose I encountered, honestly.
Wow. Under it with a razor.
Yeah, honestly. And porcupines, did you see any porcupines?
I didn't, but I grew up with a few of them. There's in Alberta, I used to see them, but they're probably big up there, eh?
Oh, they are huge. You'll see them on the side of the road all the time, and you stop and you just stare and you get out and they just waddle off. They're running. They look like this big ball of toothpicks or something. Yeah, it's amazing to see, and it is because it's so remote. Like, I think you have a lot better chance of seeing all that kind of wildlife up here than you do anywhere else that's not been, that isn't used to humankind, right?
Yeah, for sure. Have you had a scary run-in with a bear or something like that?
Lots. It happens all the time.
Yeah. Do you carry bear spray?
So share with us, for the hikers that listen to us and other people, how do you deal with a bear encounter? Because like you said, you've dealt with a bunch of them.
Well, if I'm on my bike, this 9 times out of 10 works. It's always worked for me, but if I'm on a quad and I encounter a bear on the road, I stand up on the bike to make myself look taller than him, and I pin it and go right at him.
Oh, wow.
And they run away. They're scared. They're scared of the noise. They don't like, they've never heard that, or it's scary to them. It's loud. So that works. I don't think I'd recommend that as
So that's not official advice.
Yukon Alley's advice for bears: charge them.
Well, you have to do what you gotta do.
What you gotta do. Yeah.
So what you're saying is you're badass.
Yeah. Well, that was my only choice. I wasn't carrying bear spray or a gun. What are you gonna do? It's standing there staring at me. I'm like, oh, okay, let's give it a whirl. And that works. But we have guns. I don't like to shoot them unless, and that's another thing. Like, we don't leave anything outside.
Right. No food. Nothing.
Nothing that would, because I don't want them in our camp. I don't want to have to kill something because that would be our fault.
Right. Yeah.
So, but we carry guns. So if they are in camp, some of them are just assholes, pardon the language, but they'll just show up and they charge you. So most times though, I just shoot at them and it scares them and then they don't come back. So that's how we deal with it. Bear spray, I don't know.
Have you had the chance to see many wolves while you've been up there?
Once.
Yeah, I've heard that. I hear this all the time. It's so hard to see them, eh? Like they're so hard to get a visual of. Yeah,
it's that, and that was the weirdest, freakiest thing. We had a dog, a husky, and we were in camp one morning, and the dog started crying, and I was like, what's going on? And he's crying. So I let him outside and I go outside with him and I hear this sound on the right side of the creek. And it sounded like this wounded baby moose. And I thought, well, that's odd. But the dog usually would go after it, go see what's going on. He didn't. He was sitting there crying. And I'm like, what is that? Weird. And then it stopped. 10 seconds later, on the left side of the creek, about 20 feet away, the same noise started up. And I looked over there and you could just see this thing staring at me in the trees. I'm like, how do I get the gun? Like, they were trying to lure my dog.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
To eat it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And what was it like
So,
when you saw it? Like, could you see the full thing, or was it just the eyes, or?
I saw his head and his eyes, and
Wow.
we locked eyes, and he took off, and I'm like, oh, yeah, let's not do that again.
Wow.
Wow. So you got to stare down a wolf. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Another thing I wouldn't really recommend doing.
What is your camp like? Do you guys have trailers? Are you sleeping in tents?
Yeah.
Trailers?
No, I'm not sleeping in a tent up there. Are you crazy? No.
Excuse my ignorance. I'm just very curious.
No, it's fine. You know what? Lots of people do. The hard rock miners, the hard rock exploration, they live in wall tents. Not
Really?
for me. Lots of people do, though. Yeah, they do. Yeah.
For our listeners who don't know, can you share what a wall tent is?
It's a canvas structure. It's a big tent. It's canvas. They put floors, like plywood floors on them, and maybe half of the way up the wall. But yeah, they live in them. And
what's the difference between what you do and hard rock? Because our listeners aren't going to know the answer to that. I don't
hard
even know
rock.
the answer to
that. Well, we're placer mining, so we're on the creek, in the original ancient creek bed. Hard rock is in the mountain. They're drilling. They're looking for. They're exploring in the rock. So they drill and they'll find samples, and they go by tonnage to see what they're finding. So yeah, and it is a lot different. I don't know a lot about it because I like placer mining. That's my deal. So.
Right.
But yeah.
Do you ever, when you're working a site, run into other miners or cross paths? Do you have what are the rules for, like, if you're working a site and someone else shows up and wants to also work in the same area?
They can't.
How does that work?
Claims, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Claims. Like you lay claim to a certain area, and then describe the claim system for people, because they're not gonna know what that is.
Okay, so a claim is 500 feet long by 2,000 feet wide, 2,000 feet from the center of the valley, going both ways, like 1,000 feet each way. So if you're lucky enough to find a creek that hasn't been staked in the Yukon, you can do that.
Right.
You go to the mining recorder's office, say you want to stake this ground, and they give you tags, and you go out in the tundra in the middle of nowhere, and every 500 feet you pound a post in and put your tag claim on there. That's right. Go back to town and register it, and then you have to do assessment work, because you have to keep, to prove that you want to work that ground. You do assessment work. You have to pay for your claims every year to keep them in good standing. You need water licenses, which are increasingly more difficult to get. Just, it's a sign of the times, right?
Yeah.
What are the water licenses for?
So that you can use water to sluice, right? Because you're taking water out of the creek, washing the rocks, your pay dirt, and it's going back into the creek. So we have settling ponds after our sluice plant, and that settles the dirt out of the water, and then it goes back into the main creek, so that you're not harming the fish and the habitat that are in the waterways.
What kind of fish are in those creeks?
I haven't seen any, but apparently there's graylings, salmon up here, and not in ours, but there's apparently that's what's here. I never have time to go fishing. There's a golf course up here. I still haven't seen it.
Too busy working.
So yes. I'm very interested in what the kind of like social life is like up there. Like, so, I mean, obviously the whole world has gone through this pandemic. There's been a lot of isolation, but you have lived in semi-isolation for a long time, especially in the summers.
Yeah.
How do you like? I think it would be helpful for listeners to you probably have ways of coping with this, ways of thinking about it, and you know you've lived it and it's your lifestyle. So like, how do you deal with kind of the isolation from other people, and what are kind of some of your strategies for dealing with that?
Well, I go for drives, out in nature. There is nothing that will reset your mind like a drive in nature. I mean, obviously it's not for everybody, but there's something so calming about it. You can hear birds, you can hear water. It's beautiful. And I'll do that by myself just to think about things and reset, so that's handy. There is nothing wrong with a campfire and a few beer.
Right. Yep.
Right? Yeah. And other than that, you talk to people on the phone and FaceTime. It's not the same. And I don't like this isolation thing. I like going home in the winter and being social. Right. So it's kind of, you're safe up here because we've all isolated all summer. There's no chance.
Yeah. No one's getting COVID up there. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So we can go visit other miners, friends, and hang out, and it's like nothing happened up here. That's the way I see it. Until you go into town, and yeah, you have to wear your mask in the stores and restaurants and stuff. But the casino was open last year and this year, so hello.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And they've got
we go there, and
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
They have Gertie and the girls. They still do the shows.
I was gonna say, yeah, they still do the old burlesque shows and everything. Yeah, which is a lot of fun.
And they are awesome. They are awesome. Like, it is well worth going to see just for that. It's cool.
Yeah, it's a little piece of history that you can't really find in other places too. Yeah. So I want to go into this Yukon Alley brand that you have, and what's that all about? Why did you decide to do that? What are you trying to do with it? Is it to kind of support the Yukon, build an understanding of it, or what got you into kind of this almost spokesperson role?
Well, that is my goal. There's a lot of misinformation out there. And then you add the gold shows to it, and it's a lot of drama and not necessarily what actually goes on. Maybe I don't really watch them, but they're good. I mean, people love it, but I want to show the Yukon. They never say Canada, Yukon, whatever. I'm proud of the Yukon. I'm proud of Canada. I'm proud of what we do here. And I like people to be informed on what actually happens. Like, our life is a gong show every day. We don't need to make anything up. So
right, yeah, absolutely. So what was it? Can you share the moment that you kind of decided to do this and the process and how it's working for you and what your goal is? Like, what are you trying to show people? Like, what's that spirit of the Yukon that you're trying to convey?
Well, that's exactly it. The spirit of the Yukon.
Right.
That's a really good saying. And I want to show that we're responsible. You hear a lot of bad things too, but most of us are responsible, and we want to continue doing this because it's our life. And we want to do it in a sustainable, responsible way. And what happened, I really did it for my mom because she's not able to come up here. So I was throwing videos together, and I couldn't send them from camp, but I'd go into town. And this last winter, I thought, you know what? I have all these videos that I was sending my mom. I just started throwing them on YouTube and just describing what we were doing. And it's starting to take off, I guess. I mean, it's just interesting. And people's comments on YouTube are just so awesome. I've never had such positive. They're all like, this is great. You're so helpful. educate us as well as showing us what, the fun side of mining, right? And it kind of encourages me to just keep on doing that. And I want to show reclamation videos to show what it
Yeah,
looked
that
like
would
when
be
we
awesome.
first, yeah, what would look like when we first started and what it looks like a year after we've reclaimed it, so that everything's growing again, because it really does not take long with this daylight here. So
Right. True.
yeah,
True. Oh, I guess you're not
yeah,
living.
and
I guess you're not living up there when the sun is when it's dark the whole time. But have you been up
no,
there during that? What's that? And you get to see the northern lights, I imagine. Like,
oh, stunning.
yeah.
Yeah, describe
Yeah.
that.
have,
For
you
all-
ever, have you never seen them?
I've
That-
never. Well,
Oh.
I saw them like the most piddly northern lights you've ever experienced once in Cambridge, Ontario.
Oh,
But it
wow.
was just this
Simmering.
like very, very, very faint green hue to the sky, and like I couldn't see anything
Right.
moving. But it was all over the news. The northern lights are here.
Yeah.
But what is it
Oh, well, at least
actually
you got-
like? What is it actually like?
It's like a dance across the sky. It literally, they dance across the entire horizon, and it changes color constantly: green, blue, red, purple. It's amazing. It's like a fireworks show in the sky.
Oh,
Yeah,
Yeah,
one day I
nothing
will
like
see
it.
it. One day I
No,
will see it.
it is pretty.
Also,
gorgeous.
on that topic, another thing I wanted to ask. I live in a city, right? It's got to be so quiet when your machines aren't running. What is that like?
That's a good question, because I love it. The sound of silence. There actually is a sound. You can, you hear everything. You can hear animals walking through the trees. You can hear the birds. You can hear everything. And when I come back to civilization,
Yeah.
in what I call civilization, in October, I find the traffic and the people actually drive me nuts for about a month until I get used to it again.
Wow, right? Because you're like, what is all this noise?
Get out of my way. What are all these? Doesn't anybody work? I mean, while I'm driving.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I've got
Yeah,
to
so-
imagine it's got to be breathtaking to just be able to step out into nature and hear nothing but the wind in the trees, the animals moving through the vegetation. It's got to be incredible.
It is. And if you haven't experienced it, you really should.
Sounds
Yeah.
like I've got to come to
Because-
the
and
You gotta
Yukon.
go to the Yukon.
You have to come, and you really should come in June around the summer solstice, because you can stay up all night and it'll feel like it's still 7.
Yeah, like the sun never sets.
That's right. Yeah. It just dances around and gets back up there.
Do you find it's hard to sleep in broad daylight?
No, I'm so exhausted. I
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess a 16-hour day will do that to you, won't it?
She's putting the hard work in.
We'll put like blackout windows in your bedroom, right? But it doesn't bother me. I don't mind. Yeah.
How much
I love it.
do you have the opportunity to do any foraging? Like, do you eat anything off the land, or do you get most of your food still from town?
No, I go to town. Yeah. But we do, like, after a forest fire, you get the morel mushrooms the next year.
Yeah.
So we've done that, hiked up all over the mountainside getting morels, and they are delicious. But yeah, other than that, and my neighbor, my miner neighbor, they're natives, and she does everything
Wow.
by traditional methods. And she taught me to pick off the spruce tips to make spruce tea, and she would make fireweed jam, and I'd show up at their camp and Eldria would be tanning a moose hide. Like,
that is
honestly,
so cool.
yeah, they use everything. And her beadwork is just stunning. She does that. She'll make birch baskets with porcupine quills. Like, I learned so much from her. Like they're just amazing. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that cool to see someone whose history's been there for so long and knows just every little piece of nature so well, I imagine.
It's amazing. I learned so much, and she's just such a sweet person. I got she made me a pair of moccasins with hide that she had tanned herself. So
wow, that is a special gift.
That's incredible.
Wow.
It is.
That's a piece of Canadian
lucky.
history not a lot of Canadians get to experience.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Exactly. It is. It's awesome. Yeah. There's a lot of that up here. And that's another, it's a really cool thing to come and see too, because there is a lot of it around, and a lot of people doing that, the beading and the old traditional ways, and it's really cool to see.
Yeah. Well, we got to end it pretty quickly here, but is there anything that you'd like to leave the listener with about the Yukon and your love for Canada?
Well, I think we live in the best place on the planet. I don't care where you are, whether you're in the Yukon, the prairies, Ontario, PEI, there is something beautiful in every corner of this country. And I think we're lucky no matter where we live. But if you are super lucky, you should come up to the Yukon and experience it.
There you go. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's certainly on my bucket list. I occasionally do a Google search and just look at pictures of the Yukon because I love nature and I love mountains and I love the remote and the opportunity to be alone. And I romanticize about all of those things. So one of these days I will be up there to visit. I bet your bottom dollar.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you need to drink the toe shot.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
You will when you're
go
there.
To Gertie.
Yes,
Yeah.
please go to Gertie.
Well, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you coming on. And where do people find your YouTube?
It's under Yukon Alley. Everything is Yukon Alley. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Yukon Alley. I'm there.
For spending your days out in the boonies, you're very connected on the socials.
Yeah.
You do both very well.
Okay. Actually, I haven't been able to put any videos on YouTube because nothing will upload. TikTok will, so that's fine because they're short, right? But YouTube, my the followers, they're like, when are you putting the video up? I'm trying. I got to go to town and
I got to get internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And you know what? Thank you for taking it upon yourself to show the world how much you love the place that you live.
Well, thank you so much for having me and letting me talk about it.
Thank you for listening to The Canadian Story. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at The CAD Story. That's The CAD Story. If you enjoy this podcast, please share it with your friends and family. Let's work together to remind Canadians how great their country is.